Welcome, accomplices. I'm Lynda Norman. I'm a watercolor artist here in British Columbia. Today we're going to spend some time working with Mayan dark blue and Quinacridone Sienna on 100% cotton paper. See what happens. Today we're going to work a little bit with two colors, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about how we can make best use of our paper. Often the 100% cotton paper is a little more costly than some can afford. Always buy the best you can afford. That's my best advice when it comes to paper. If you're not painting on a nice, wonderful surface that's primed, not primed so much, but created to accept your watercolors and the water that you apply to the best way possible, your results aren't going to be as good as perhaps you'd like. So today I'm working on it's actually a small block, glued on all sides except for the one little corner. This is a Toscana, 100% cotton, 140 pound, 300 GSM, and it's 7 by 10. And I've discovered that if you purchase these standard little mats, and I'm just going to grab, oh, there's me. That's not the inches ruler. This is, there we go. This is actually, the opening is 4.5 inches. I would say by 6.5 inches. This ruler isn't quite long enough to measure that, but so 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches is what will show of your design in the center of this little mat. These come pre-cut. You can get them at your local art store, at your craft stores. Here in our town, they used to have them in dollar stores, but they don't anymore. And online, of course. We have a lovely little frame shop here in town that can cut them to custom order for you, Art Framer, and there's lots of ways to explore this. You could even invest in a cutting device and cut your own, but that's a tricky process. I prefer to leave that to the experts. But what I thought with this piece, because it's 7 by 10, and my opening only needs to be 4.5. If I went the 10-inch, if I did it landscapes layout, it's 10 inches, or pardon me, 10 inches long. I only need 4.5, so I can actually go to the 5-inch mark and just make a line down the center of my paper. And I can do two pieces on this one piece of paper and still have 1/4 inch on each side to sit behind my mat if I want to mat it and frame it. And then that leaves me probably about the same amount top and bottom. It'll be tight. I often like to leave a little more paper behind the mat if possible, but I think this is going to work. So let's do that. I'm going to just make a mark down the center just so I kind of know where one design will end and one will start. Because it's on a block, I won't cut it yet. I want it to stay on the block so that when it dries, it's going to be nice and flat, and then we'll take it off from there. So I have two options. I could turn it this way and do two landscape pieces, or I'll leave it this way. I think I'll leave it this way and do something with more taller trees or something in the landscape there. Also, if you didn't want to put it behind a small mat, this could be a nice size for a greeting card. Some of them are pre-made, and you can just glue this to the surface of your greeting card when you're done. I find when it comes to greeting cards, just to get off topic a tiny bit, if you're using really lovely watercolor paper, the 140 pound or even 300 pound, if you were to fold this to make your own greeting card, it gets a bit bulky and a little awkward. And the surface is probably not that nice to write on in the middle, so you might want to add a slice of paper or a piece of paper. But enough of that. we'll get going on our 2-color design. Mayan Dark Blue and Quinacridone Sienna. It's something that I've added to my Eco palette. It's a new color to me. It's orangey. It's quite beautiful. And I just thought, because it's new to my palette, I would try that with my favorite Mayan Dark Blue and just see what happens. Often the 2-color designs are just appealing to me. They're very simplistic. So I'm going to, as always, just wet my palette. I love that my paints, my Daniel Smith paints, reconstitute every time I want to use them. They just become juicy, ready to go. I spray the water on quite generously, actually, just to let it all soak in and awaken those paints in my palette. I love the Eco palette because it's got the nice big wells for when I do want to use my big brushes, which is often the case. And these little pans do come out. You can pop them out, and I have a whole selection of them here that I can pop in and refill, which I did with this one. While I'm waiting for that paint to just sort of wake up, I'll tell you about a new color in my palette. It's called Ultramarine Ash. It's a Winsor & Newton color, so that's another departure from my usual Daniel Smith. But I've tried it a couple of times. It's quite lovely, and maybe in our next video we'll explore that a little bit. I think it would be really pretty in one of our vignettes, perhaps, to go from there. So, back to our painting. What I think I'm going to do is go to my little 3-line solo brush, holds a ton of water, and I'm going to wet my surface. This Toscana paper is pretty durable. It's 100% cotton. And just because I'm painting intuitively today, I'm going to wet the whole page because I don't know where things are going to end up. I'm not even sure where I'm going to start at the moment, but I have a pretty good idea. I was thinking perhaps of allowing the paints to disperse and move through the water like they beautifully can do. So I'm going to start, I think, with a horizon line with Mayan Dark Blue, and I'm just loading the tip of my brush. You can see that it's quite beautiful and juicy. It's probably the consistency of whipping cream before you whip it. My paper is lovely and wet. I can actually see a bit of pooling. I'm going to just move that pool out and down a little bit just so that it's not quite as wet in that one spot. And let's touch here for our horizon line. I hesitate to make my horizon lines dead center. I don't care for that look so much. And I look at how that Mayan Dark Blue dissipates the water on the 100% cotton paper. It just allows the pigments to follow along, and I'm going to tip it just a tiny bit, quite drastically. Some painters paint on it on a bit of an incline or an angle. I've always just painted flat, and then if I feel the need to encourage the pigments to move, I will certainly adjust that. I had a little open spot there in the center. I'm going to fill that in. And just, when I create my trees, if the paper is wet and ready to accept that pigment, really all you need to do, if you've got a nice load on your brush, on a fine point brush, is just indicate in a few spots where you want that pigment to land, and indicate branches. Now, all of that was done with one load on this little brush. I could still go on for quite some time if I didn't want anything thicker, but because I've got something looking quite thick and dark on this side, I'm just going to touch one time into my palette to reload that tip, and I'm going to give another, just a spot here, I think, just to add continuity, perhaps a little balance, because I've got a little bit of dark on both sides. This one, I'm going to bring it right down into this foreground so that it looks like it's nice and in your face. With what's left on my brush, I'm just encouraging some of that color out to create some shadow. But now this lovely tree is, one more dab, just to bring that's, I was going to say stem, that trunk of that tree just down into the foreground. And some nice low, far-reaching branches there. The pigment is very, very thick. I love that that's going to give just a beautiful bit of depth and texture to the painting. I'm going to leave this side here, that faded out kind of misty look, because I like that in the background. I just want to go back on this side now while it's still wet, just to add just some points to these trees. I want them to be perhaps a little more specific. The water, this is the side where there was a bit more water, so you can see where it's diffusing quite a bit. So just to fill in a tiny bit there, I'm going to add some tree tops and leave a bit of the white just perhaps as a misty little cloud. I love that in the mountains near where we live, often the clouds come down really low, and there's little white and puffy marshmallow patches in amongst the trees, and I just find that so beautiful and intriguing. So we'll just add a few more of these little tree shapes on this side. The water is going to take care of forming most of those trees for me, so I'm pretty happy about that. And I think I'm ready now to add my Quinacridone Sienna. When I sit back, I can see I still have a fair bit of water in the top part of this painting, less here, and that'll allow me at some point, by the time I get down to here, for a little bit of dry brushing, which gives another interesting effect on your page. So, Quinacridone Sienna, it's an orangey, earthy kind of beautiful color. And let's just see what happens here. I haven't used these two colors together yet, so you're on this journey with me. Let's see what happens. Give it a little, I don't know why I decided to put a tree in there, but it seems to want to happen, so we're just going to do that. It's fairly dry in here, so the paint is going to stay thick. And then I think down here I'm going to just bring this in. And now that I'm doing this, I'm thinking, okay, so I think this could look like a reflection. I want to add a bit more water. I don't want to dip my brush in my vessels for this. I think I just want to get a little bit of diluted paint on the tip of my brush. I'm going to take my paper towel, tip that off. Just, I can see there's paint on the tip of my brush. If I touch it on my paper towel, I can see that there's a fair bit of strong color there. I will go back to one of my other beautiful Lebanson brushes. I love that they're able to hold a ton of water. They come to a lovely point so they can be precise. This one is a medium pony hair, and that's a brush that I just received recently from Tracy Lebens, and I haven't used it yet, so that'll be another video where I feature this as well. I just want to add a bit more water to the edges of what we have here in this orange. And then what I've picked up just by touching the water there in that pigment, I want to bring up into this part here. Just a little bit of that color into the sky. And now I can go in, now that I've got water in that space, on that surface. I'm going to add that in there. I want that to diffuse a little bit, but I'm going to soften those edges after I get a bit more strong color into this section here. And I'm just going to spread it out so that it just comes up to those trees. I want a little bit of that to come through. Rinse my brush and just pull this away. Again, tipping my page, allowing that to, I'm just going to move that right up, the water right up to the top of the page so that the pigment can continue to move through that water. See, I've got a couple of darker dots here. And I just want the orange to just come into that area. Now, a trick that I've often, just clean my brushes here before I pick them up again to use, that I've often done in the past, and I think the lids of the paint tube would be fine, is I wrap dampish paper towel. I don't want it sopping wet. I don't want it completely dry, because if it's dry, it doesn't conform to the circle as nicely. And I want to put the indication of an orb. I don't know if it's going to be a sun or a moon. To me, that doesn't matter. I just want an indication of something happening there. I don't want it dead center, so I'm going to put it probably right there. Just pressing that into the paint, and now we have a little moon or a sun. Now that I've got sort of those pieces in, I'm pretty happy with the way things have gone. I would just wanted to feather a little bit of this into where those trees are, so it looks a little more natural. And I think what I'd like to do is just, if I put a few of these tree shapes in here, it would give sort of the indication that sunrise, sunset is kind of reflecting on those bits of forest on the horizon. And just, I love that, I don't know if you can see this, but where the colors have come together, they've kind of kept their own space here. So they've almost given a little bit of an outline. And for my imagination, that could mean perhaps a little bit of snow covering that little bit of the horizon area there. I talked about dry brushing, so let's, what that is a little bit of paint on your brush. I'm going to scruffle this brush out. That's another thing I love about these brushes. And I'm just going to just bring that across the dry paper, just touching the surface. And what that does is the pigment will sit on the bumps on the surface of the paper. Soften a little bit of this edge. Bring a little bit of this through these shadowed areas from the base of this tree. I think I'm almost done with the Sienna, Quinacridone Sienna. I think that's enough of that on this page. And I think the last thing I want to do is go back into my Mayan dark blue and perhaps just encourage some of that. The way they're blending is gorgeous to me. I really appreciate that they're doing that, and the two together are really quite spectacular. This to me looks a bit stark, so I'm going to go in. I've cleaned my brush. Just sort of scruffed it on the paper towel. It's damp. I can feel moisture on it, but it's not soaking wet. Dabbed it in my Mayan dark blue, and then I'm just adding a tiny bit to the surface there, and pulling that through. I'm going to try dabbing that. See what happens here. Lighten up a little bit of that. And then just back with some water, just to finish off the bottom edge here. I'm going to go over top of this Quinacridone Gold in the corner. It will still show a little bit in the bottom. I don't mind that there's a little bit of white showing here and there. That sort of enhances the snowy aspect. And then one last thought I had was just to add a tiny bit of the the Mayan dark blue just in front of these trees, just slightly. Indicate perhaps some shadows. And to keep that theme, I'm just going to wet that a tiny bit, just so that the paint doesn't leave a hard edge. And then the Quinacridone Sienna in the background kind of gives that shading, that shadow of what's there. Okay. And we dab. Yeah, I kind of like these colors together. This is still a bit damp, but I see where when I put that blue, it kind of pushed that beautiful sunsetty thing away, that design, that shape, what was happening there. So I'm just going to go back over on top a tiny bit and reintroduce those tree shapes a little bit. Just a slight indication. We'll just put another one over here just for fun. All right. So I'm happy with that. I think I can see potential for more things happening with these two colors. They work well together. To my eye, I like that they blend. They play well. The Quinacridone Sienna, I found, didn't push away as much as the Quinacridone Gold would, but I love that it has that ability to diffuse gently and give you that lovely sunsetty look. If you don't like the look of just a stark moon or sun, you could always pull some cloud shapes into that. You have to be careful when you're adding wet to wet, but Yeah, I think we could have some interesting little cloudy things happening there if we wanted to. You have to be careful when you're dabbing with a paper towel that you don't get a polka dotty effect. So I'm stretching it so that it's a longer shape, sort of to indicate a line of clouds. But that is that. I would leave it this way. I love that there's some white coming through here. Actually, I said I'm going to leave it, but I'm not. I'm going to take this wet brush, just water, and I'm going to add some water, and I'm going to just pull a tiny bit away because I found that a bit heavy on the bottom. Mayan dark blue, Quinacridone Sienna. Two colors that I think play quite well together. Try it. Let me know if you like it. Thanks for joining me today, accomplices. We played a little bit with some Mayan dark blue and a new color to my palette, Quinacridone Sienna. Had some fun with it. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to my channel. Visit my website, bandrystudio.com. That's BANDRAOI studio.com. Or head on over to our membership area where we're going to have some fun things happening soon.